First, tax dodgers are just as bad as benefit cheats, according to the Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. He'll tell the Liberal Democrat conference in Liverpool later today that catching tax cheats is just as important for balancing the nation's books as weeding out people who are fraudulently claiming state support. An estimated £7 billion a year is lost through tax avoidance. So the government has decided it is time to do something about it. It's thought HM Revenue and Customs will employ private companies to investigate the records of people earning more than £150,000 a year to see if they are being overly creative with their accounting. It begs the question, how do you find out if someone is lying about their money? There is a weapon long used by insurance companies called voice recognition analysis. It's basically a telephone lie detector. It's already being used to detect false benefit claimants, so should the government use lie detectors to catch tax cheats too? In a moment we'll speak about the device to Jeremy Barrett from Polygraph Security Services. He can tell us how it works. But first, to talk about tax avoidance, I'm joined by the Radio 2 tax inspector from Belfast. We welcome Adrian Huston. Hi, Adrian.
Hello, Jeremy.
So why target people over £150,000 a year? Because there aren't that many of them, are there?
Well, they aren't, but of course, if you do target people at that sort of income level, they're already paying 50% tax. So if you can find some extra income that they haven't declared, you're getting the best possible return, which is 50% plus whatever penalty you choose to charge them for being a naughty boy.
And are those people then bringing in all these evasions, do you think, at the moment, because they're trying to avoid the 50p rate?
To be quite honest, I don't think so, no. I mean, I don't think even that many people are leaving the country to avoid the 50% rate. I suspect that the HMRC's target will still remain the smaller people who are earning under 150,000, because it's much easier to get extra tax out of a taxi driver or a publican or someone who's running a butcher's shop or doing some odd jobs for people in the street than it is to target someone earning over 150,000 who probably has some clever lawyers and accountants working for him.
They had an amnesty a few months back, didn't they? And it was aimed at the medical profession.
Yes, that's right. Their first amnesty 3 years ago was aimed at general people with offshore investments, and that brought in £400 million. They got much less in the more recent amnesty, which was aimed primarily at medics, and etc. And I think they got about £80 million. So it was still worth having for very little effort at the revenues end. But the hidden economy is massive.
I was going to say one doctor had to hand over £1 million in unpaid tax.
Yes, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, people sometimes put professionals on a pedestal and think, no, of course, I'm sure they look after their affairs and they're all terribly upright. But actually, to be quite honest, nearly everybody's at it. There are people in every section of community who are fiddling their taxes. There's no barrier as to who they are.
But that's why I ask about the people earning over 150,000, because you'd think they might go lower down at the cash in hand, people who do plumbing or building or whatever.
I would think they will target both. I still have my doubts as to whether the private sector are going to be used to investigate these people over 150,000. I think it's more likely that a specialist office in the revenue called the Complex Personal Return Team will be expanded to this wider range of people. So it just means they'll have a little bit extra scrutiny on their affairs. There's still more money to be made by investigating plumbers and publicans.
And tell us the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion, because it is a crucial distinction, isn't it?
Well, it is a crucial distinction, but the government these days is trying to blur the distinction between them. Tax avoidance is supposedly, and in the letter of the law, it is legal. It is using the tax rules as they're currently set up to minimise your tax bill but without breaking any laws. Tax evasion is where you simply are going outside the law and you're putting money in your back pocket, or you're failing to declare some income. The government these days is trying to equate the two and really say, we don't like either of these. If you're doing some clever legal manoeuvre to avoid your tax, we want to stop that too. But that's the game of cat and mouse that clever tax lawyers are at all time.
I guess people who are on pay-as-you-earn are already declaring everything by definition. In fact, they don't see the money they pay as tax because it's gone when they get their payslip. So it's people who are paid in cash, is it?
It is generally, yes. You could get someone who's on pay-as-you-earn who has a second job. They're maybe doing some catalogue sales or running Tupperware parties at night or whatever, and they haven't declared that. But most typically, certainly, you'll be talking people who are self-employed, either full-time or part-time, and typically cash jobs. And we need to remember that if we sit on our high horse in the pub and say that benefit cheating is terrible, we need to also think, well, when we're asked to pay £100 cash to the plumber, we're actually condoning and encouraging the same activities.
Any parallels in other countries, Adrian?
Yes, in Italy, for example, if you go and go to a fruit stall in Venice and try to order a bag of peaches, you'll find that you will be handed a receipt for that. You'd never get that in the UK, but you'll be handed a receipt for that, and that's because the tax police will come down on that stall holder if he didn't issue a receipt, and you can even be stopped in the street and asked, do you have the receipt for that bag of peaches? So they've got a very strong tax police. Of course, they have a massive issue with tax evasion. And, we could find a situation here where traders and handymen and plumbers, etc., will be required to issue a receipt. And, of course, they don't know who they're dealing with, and if they fail to issue a receipt, that could lead to them being grassed up to the revenue.
Adrian Huston, Radio 2 Tax Inspector, thank you very much indeed. Let's talk about whether it's possible to use this famous telephone lie detector and how it works. Jeremy Barrett is from Polygraph Security Services. Do you supply them, Jeremy?
No, I don't. I'm very aware of them because I have been in contact with the people who operate them since they came into this country 11, 12 years ago.
So if you ring, say, First Direct with an insurance claim, what happens to your voice on the phone?
It is well, first of all, you get a message quite often saying this call may be monitored for security and whatever reasons, yeah?
Yeah.
That is a polite way of saying we may well be checking you to see if you're telling us porkies. If they are using a voice analysis system, it is measuring your voice at 17 different levels. It's the timbre of your voice, it's your breathing, it's the hesitations, it's all those things. It's measuring 17 different levels, and it's very, very accurate.
And it's picking up on what precisely?
Your hesitations, you're telling lies. You're ringing, making a fraudulent claim, and there's bound to be more stress, more tension in your voice. And if you're ringing up, okay, you might be stressed because your kitchen's just been flooded and you can't cook and you're up to your ankles in water. But if you're now ringing from a perfectly dry kitchen and making a false claim, there will be more stress in your voice.
So tell me a lie now. You pretend you've lost your camera on holiday and you're going to tell me you left it by the swimming pool and somebody must have taken it. And I'm going to listen to your voice.
I just turned my back on it for 2 minutes. It was by the swimming pool. I looked towards the cafe. It's gone.
Well, now you sound like it's a completely true story. You did it brilliantly.
Yes, but if you had got the Nemesisco computerized system hooked up to this phone, that would have warned you that I was not being totally truthful.
Because your voice was slightly tense?
Yeah. I mean, even good liars think that they are able, they can look you in the eye. I have exactly the same thing with the polygraph. When I'm using my polygraph instrument, prior to using it, I have to interview the people. And I gave up years ago trying to double-guess them. I used to think I was a good judge of character. But I tell you, there are people out there walking about who, if they lived in Hollywood, would have a mantelpiece full of Oscars and BAFTAs and CRAFTAs and everything else, because there's some great liars out there.
Well, you say your polygraph. Now, I always assume that those aren't seen as being particularly reliable now, but are they?
Yes, they are.
Really?
Yes, there's 98% accuracy with the polygraph, provided it's handled properly and provided the questions are properly prepared.
So somebody was
asked...
asked...
Where the voice stress system is so much better in a wider... I like to compare them. I call the polygraph the sniper's rifle, and the voice stress analysis is more of a shotgun. It will give you an idea that this person is lying, and that leads you then to investigate them further. I mean, fraud, whether it be insurance fraud or tax fraud or whatever, costs all of us money. Insurance premiums are higher than they would if everybody told the truth and made proper claims and didn't try and inflate them and go for the extra bit. Insurance premiums would be cheaper than they are.
So with this system, if HMRC took it on, you could get a phone call and somebody could say, can I just ask you a few questions about your tax?
Absolutely.
And they could say, just to check, you have declared everything, haven't you?
Sure. I mean, there are already about 20 local authorities around the UK who are using this system. So when you ring in and say, I haven't been able to work for the last 4 months, Gov, could you send me some money? They're testing your voice.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Jeremy Barrett. Paul in Boston, Lincolnshire, says, I've got a stammer that's enhanced in stressful situations. I tried voice stress software for fun a few years ago, And as the session wore on, every second word alarmed up as untrue. And now I just keep quiet, and I only use monosyllabic answers, especially when I'm talking to the authorities. Peter in Andalusia says, if I knew they were monitoring, I would write to them instead. That would wreck their lie detection system. Quite frankly, it's meaningless. People don't have much faith in it. Eric emails, this sounds like the police state the Labour government was heading for is alive and well with the condemns. The use of private debt-collecting companies is also very suspect, as some of these use bullying, threats and harassment to extract payment. And one more from John, who says lie detectors are not used in courts because they are not reliable. So what is the point of them? It's John. Aiton has been in touch. He says, could your earlier guest explain why I should not pay my plumber, or anyone else for that matter, in cash? Is that illegal now? Talking about plumbers, some plumbers avoiding tax. Not you, I'm sure, if you're a plumber. John Ashby in Chester says, a friend of mine who's in the police said if you inflict pain on yourself when you're talking into the lie detector, they will not be able to tell if you're telling the truth or not, because the pain interferes with what's happening in your body and makes any reading invalid. So if you just put a drawing pin under your toe, for example, that muddles up the results. So next time you call an insurance company, just a drawing pin in your shoe, they can't tell. John Moncrief in Wykencroft in Coventry, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy.
So you think they should go after these tax evaders?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in my case, the tax evaders are actually even maybe worse criminals than some of the benefit cheats. I mean, benefit cheats maybe stay in a modest house and they are doing illegal things, but if you go after the tax evaders, they've actually got very nice houses, 2, 3 cars, houses abroad, millions of pounds in offshore accounts, and they are definitely avoiding paying tax, and so is some of the big corporate companies in this country.
So they are scamming on a much bigger scale, you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, say, I say, right, so we all my friends over there is a better class of thief.
What do you think about the idea of going for those who earn more than $150,000 a year?
I would actually drop that figure.
Drop it?
Because I know people who maybe make £60,000, £70,000 a year who are self-employed, and I know they are doing a big fiddle.
But how are they doing that then?
Simple, because the jobs they work in, they get paid cash, and they just don't put it all through the books, and they've got nice accountants, and they've got a lawyer who'll help them do the fiddling.
So if the tax inspectors come round, they say, what were you doing every Monday this month? And they just say, well, I wasn't working. Is that what they do?
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, anybody who writes it gets paid cash. It's very easy for them. If they're in a job where they don't have to worry about buying equipment to do it, like a plumber, he has to have a certain amount of outlay to fix a job. But if you say a hairdresser or a taxi driver, things like that, who get paid cash, you can easily fiddle the books.
Thank you, John.
I've known that for years.
Cheers, John. Thanks a lot. Nice to talk to you. Martin in Essex has texted, if these lie detectors are completely accurate, why don't we use them in court? It would save millions in long-running court cases. Also, people saying you should use them on MPs, actually, as well. Mandy Evans in Market Drayton, Shropshire. Mandy says, I think it's a great idea to use these lie detectors because I do not tell lies. We tried to set ourselves up as a limited company. We weren't allowed because we're sole traders. We get hammered for tax, and there are millionaires out there who've set up as limited companies. That's the biggest tax evasion method. Mick Meacham in Nottingham, good afternoon.
Hello, Jeremy.
What do you think?
I'm annoyed.
Tell us why. You're an electrician.
I'm a self-employed electrician now. I know the cash in hand thing goes on. I'm not going to deny that. But they're just pinpointing people like me who, at the moment, are finding it hard with the recession anyway. The tax officers are not prepared to help you in the slightest. I've had my issues with them as well. And now they're going to say to me, they're going to lie detect me. When they speak to me, they're going to lie detect me to see if I'm declaring everything. I do all my books, I do them regularly, I hand them in, I pay my taxes, and they're still pinpointing me.
But that's because, I guess it's because of that cash-in-hand culture. They're very suspicious, aren't they?
Well, occasionally they are, yeah, but I mean, so what happens when you do a car boot? You do a car boot, you make £100 off it, do you pay the tax man for it? No.
You mean you get some things to sell and you make a bit of money, you wouldn't pay tax on that?
That's right.
Well, do you ever does a customer ever say to you, look, let's leave out VAT, I'll pay you cash, and you just don't have it on the books?
I can't really say anything about that, can I?
We've got the lie detector on this end.
No.
Thanks, Mick.
All right, thank you.
The machines jumping around. Jan in Wellingborough text, does voice recognition take into account that your voice pitch and attitude depends on how long you've been waiting on the phone? Good question. John is in Cheshire. The flaw in this lie detection system is that it's not 100% perfect, and people get stressed just talking to the taxman even when they're innocent. And one more, good question actually, bringing up the rear here. Hanel Martila asks, is this legal to subject people to a lie detector test without their knowledge? It's already happening with insurance companies, so it must be legal.